this video we'll talk about the next jump statement, that is the return keyword. Okay, so if we talk about this return keyword, it is something which is used to transfer the control from called method to the calling method. Okay, so before we talk about this return word, first I would like to tell you about the calling method and the called method. Okay, so just suppose if I have some lines of code over here, okay, and this is the main function which I am talking about, and inside this main function, suppose I have a function name called sum. Okay, so here we have this sum function, and inside this we may have some arguments, okay, so here suppose I gave two arguments, that is two numbers a and b, okay, and semicolon. Okay, so this is the main function, and inside this we call this sum function. Okay, and as we have called the sum function should be present somewhere outside this main class. Okay, so just suppose we have defined the sum function outside this. Okay, and it has some arguments and it has some body, and also it may or may not have some return type. Either the return type would be void, that means it is not compulsory that it should return something, or it could return some values like int, float, or any of the data type. And if this data type is void over here, it would be printing the sum of numbers a and b in this function only. Okay, so in this main function we called the sum function. Okay, so we have two things with us. Okay, we have two things. First is the calling method, okay, and another one is the called method. Okay, so in this case, which one is the calling method and which one is the called method? Here we are calling this sum function. Okay, so this method, this whole sum method, is the called method, as we have called it in this main function. And as this main function has called the sum function, the main function is the calling method and the sum function is the called method. Okay, so this is the calling method and the sum function is called as called method. Okay, now if we talk about the return keyword, what is the role of return is here. Okay, so as we have called this this sum function in this line, okay, and suppose as we can see, this is the third line, first line is this, second line, and this is third line, and suppose after this we have one more line to print hi. Okay, so when we have called this sum function in this line, okay, so as we have called this, it will go to this function and will execute the lines of code present over here in this function. But what after that? After it is executed all the lines of code inside it need to returns to this main function, because we need to execute the lines present after the calling of this sum function. So to transfer the control from this called method, that which is sum, okay, so transfer the control from this called method sum to the calling method main, we need the return keyword. Okay, so we'll place a return keyword over here. Okay, so as we'll place a return keyword over here, we need to place a semicolon also inside after it, and depending upon our value what we are returning, as we are returning white over here, that means we are not returning anything, so we need not to place anything after return. But suppose if we would be having int type over here, then we would return some integer type value, that is return a, or that is return some variable sum or variable c, which could be storing the sum of a and b. Okay, so as we have placed this return keyword over here, when this return keyword will be executed, it will again go back to this line of code and will print this line present over here after the sum function was called. Okay, so this is the main role of return keyword. Okay, now we'll see some example also. Okay, so we'll take an example to find the max of two numbers using third variable. Okay, so I'll open this editor and we'll make a new file. Okay, so first of all we'll name our class as class A, and I'll save the program, that is a.java. Inside the Java proc folder I have saved it. Okay, now inside this, suppose I have the yes, we already know that we have this main function, that is public static void main with string type argument inside it. So here we have string args or a single s or anything you want to name it. I put it simple args. Okay, and inside this main we need two numbers. Okay, so we'll take two numbers. So here we have x and y as two numbers in which we'll store the value, and one more variable z in which we'll store the max of x and y. Now we'll initialize x and y with some values. So suppose I take 13 in x and in y I take 4. Okay, so now I'll store the result in z, and I'll call the max function and will pass x and y as arguments inside it, and then I'll print the value of z, that is system.out.println z. Okay, and so now this main function is completed. Now we need to build the max function. Okay, so here we have the max function. As I'm returning the value integer type value, so I have placed a integer data type over here as we are returning int type value. So we have max is the method name. We can choose this of any of our choice, but we just need to replace it over here also. Okay, so we can use it maximum, result, or anything which we want. Okay, and inside that we need to have some argument. So here we have a and int b. Okay, and this is the body of this max function. I have placed int a comma int b over here because we are passing x comma y arguments inside this max function. These x comma y are called actual parameters, and the ones we have chosen over here, this int a and b, are called as formal parameters. Okay, we can also name them as x and y, as these x and y are not related to them in any way. Okay, so we can also name it as x and y or a or b, it's any of our choice. As here you can see we have taken x and y of form integer type, and we are passing integer type in this max function. So to store some integer type data type, we need integer type data type. Okay, so here we have taken int a and int b. Okay, now inside this max function we need to check that which one is greater. Okay, so here we have int I type variable. Okay, and then actually we don't need any variable. Okay, so I'll remove it from here. Here only we'll check that which one is greater. So here we have, if a is greater than b, then we need to return a, as if a is greater than b, which means a is the maximum among the two, so we'll return the maximum value, which is a in this case. Else if a is not maximum, that means b would be maximum, so we'll return b. Okay, so now I'll save the program and we'll run it in this Java proc folder. Okay, so from here I'll open the cmd. Inside this we have the compile command javac, and the class name is a.java. Okay, so we just got an error that the method, non-static method max, cannot be referenced from a static context. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit over here. As we are calling this max function over here, in Java we need some object to call a method, but if we want that we do not need some object to call some method. Okay, so for that we need to make that method static. Okay, so suppose as I will make this method static over here, now we will not be requiring a object of this class max. We'll directly call this name, that is max, and will not get an error. So I'll save it again, and now we'll again run it and will not get an error. Okay, so here we have compile command and the class name is A. Okay, so we got the output as 13 because from 13 and 4 the max is 13. Suppose if I change the value over here as 3 and I again save this, and if we compile and again run it, we got the output as 4, as the maximum among 3 and 4 is 4. Okay, so now here I'd like to mention some note that a method can accept any number of arguments but can return only maximum one output. Okay, so by this I mean that here you can see this max function is accepting two number of arguments. It can also take 3, 4, 5, 6 multiple numbers, but it is returning a single output, only one value. Okay, this is the case of Java. If we talk about C, okay, so suppose in C if we have some statement like this, return x, y and z, then it's not a problem. This is about C language. Okay, but in Java if we write some sentence like return x comma y comma z, then it is not allowed. Okay, it's not allowed because in Java this comma is only a separator. It is not a operator in Java. Okay, so here you can see we are having this comma present between these variables x, y and z. So this is only a separator. It doesn't act as an operator in this Java. So we'll get an error for more than one value in this return case. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you everyone.